I poke at things with a stick a lot before I, put my whether I like it or not. So the best thing is just let it be, and they'll be all right.
Now, yeah, as far as that goes, I just lost my train of thought on that. I had a question, I lost it.
Well, while we're on the feeding thing, 95% of all aquarium problems come from overfeeding.
That's what I was going to bring up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can actually dirty your water.
Yeah.
By feeding them too much.
Right.
I mean, fish is just like us. I mean, we can only eat so much. Yeah.
Well, we could try even more, but generally speaking, fish have a gullet. So it's a very primitive stomach.
Right.
And the gullet's only about the size of one of their eyeballs.
Wow.
Yeah, it's small. So when you put a pinch of food in, they'll only be able to eat so much. And then when it passes through the digestive system, a lot of the nutrients aren't really extracted from that food.
Because it's so small a stomach, it's going through quick.
Right. So when they waste out a lot of organics. And those organics are the things that cause a lot of the algae blooms, a lot of the cloudy water. So there's a whole technique of what I've been telling a lot of people is when you throw food in a tank, a good rule of thumb is if there's food left over after about 60 seconds, you got to cut back a little bit.
Now, how do you clean up the bottom of the tank without taking all the water out?
Well, there's a couple different things. First off, you get some help. There's fish out there that'll eat the algae off the sides of the glass. Yeah. There's some catfish that constantly just forage through the bottom for either the uneaten food or any rotten vegetation that are in there. So they're doing their job. But generally speaking, if you have a straight gravel in your fish tank, they make these underwater vacuum cleaners, and you can actually vacuum the gravel up. And it's designed to take a lot of the heavy particulates out, but leave some of the beneficial bacteria in that gravel.
Oh.
And that way you can change some of the water too. You're not supposed to change all the water because
you're changing their environment is what you're doing.
The minimal amount you can change the environment, but still change it, the better off they're going to be.
Right.
So it's when people break down fish tanks and completely clean everything and they put everything back together, now you're starting a whole new cycle, trying to get all the bacteria growing again, and in a few weeks or a few months, that's when problems really start to arise, generally speaking.
That's really an ecotarium in there. That's their whole environment.
Very much so. Yep.
You know, it'd be like changing our environment.
Yep. Well, I tell people like this: people that work in like restaurants, where they go from a hot kitchen to a cold refrigerator and a hot kitchen, and they do that back and forth. Their immune system is eventually going to be weakened, and they're going to catch the common cold.
Right.
The same thing with the fish. What I was saying about the temperature being stable.
Yes.
If the temperature is always fluctuating, or the environment, for whatever reason, is fluctuating, they're going to end up getting their immune system compromised. And fish always have all types of pathogens on them and critters on them, and they're just waiting for the chance for the immune system to go down a little bit so they can be more prevalent. Yep.
Yeah, now, so if you change the water, is it a good idea to keep it stored on the side till it gets closer to room temperature before you put it in?
Well, I'll have to admit, I'm kind of lazy.
Yeah.
What I'll do is I'll set up a tank at a particular office building or what have you, and I'll take the water straight out of the tap, and I'll start changing the water, and I'll see what the fish do. If everybody's happy, I just keep doing that.
Right.
If things don't look quite right, then you start either bringing fish in or putting a filtered water in, or on some of the more expensive systems I have water filtration that'll make reverse osmosis water, put that into a barrel, and then I'll be able to pump that into another barrel, and I'll be able to make my salt water in that barrel. I'll be able to heat it in that barrel. I'll have circulation pumps, so when I do water changes, all I have to do is turn a valve, drain some of the water out, open up another valve, pump the fresh water in.
For the average household, that's not
it all depends on experimentation and being able to feel what's going on with the fish
Of course,
tank.
if you're only changing half the water, you're not going to hurt it as much because that water's going to start taking the higher temperature that's in there.
Right. You want to try to match the temperature up as much as you can.
Right.
You want to try to get the pH the same and stuff like that. Right. And sometimes you can add a little bit of aquarium salt to your fish tank. I'm not a big fan of that, but sometimes I do that. So it all depends on what the tank really
so
needs.
even though they're freshwater fish, will put a little salt?
Well, the theory is that like we have sodium in our bodies.
Right.
So we drink and what have you, and we have a system that regulates that. Well, fish have something called osmotic regulation system in their body. They have sodium in their body. So if we put in fresh water, they end up drinking a lot, trying to flush the salt out, because the osmosis is driving them crazy for the salt trying to drive out. And then they keep drinking, urinating all the time. And eventually they get tired. Then their immune system goes down. And then they get whatever critters on them at the time. But I'll be the one I'll put them in fresh water and I'll just watch them, see how they do. If they do fine, great. And if they seem to be a little sluggish after a few days or so, I'll put a little bit of salt in. And
yeah, you're talking about fish doing things like we do. They are living creatures. We don't think of it that way.
Yeah.
We don't think the fact that they have to drink water. Everything living drinks water.
Yep, they suffer a lot of the medical problems that we have. I think we were talking about sclerosis of the back, scoliosis of the back. They all suffer from cancer, tumors, heart diseases.
Give me a good segue. My next show was Dr. Hulk on your health.
Oh, okay, yep.
I wouldn't advise bringing your fish to chiropractor, but that's okay. But we don't realize, and they do breathe. They breathe oxygen out of the water through their, and that's why the mouth is always going.
Yep, their mouth is always going. The gills are always going.
Yep.
You can tell what a fish is in distress if they breathe very rapidly or if they hold their fins close to their body. And you just got to be aware and be in tune. And
so it's amazing. Okay, we got a call here. I was waiting to see what the. Go ahead, call. You're on with the fish man.
Yes, hi, Rich. I have a funny question. Maybe it's funny or not. You might have heard this in the past, but I talk to my plants, I talk to my cat and dogs, and when I'm on vacation, I'll even pick up the phone and talk on the answer machine. Does that make sense to talk to fish? They hear the vibration?
They feel the vibration very much. A lot of fish have something called lateral line, which is a series of holes that run down the side of their body. And those holes actually are like little tiny ears. And they can actually feel the vibrations of water and when you tap on the glass. And so when you look at like a National Geographic show and you see these thousands and thousands of fish and they all turn on a dime, the reason why they can do that is all those ears that are running alongside their body, they can feel all the water pressure from the fish next to them. So when one fish turns, they feel that. And the next one turns.
They know it turn themselves.
And they can do it in fractions of a second. So there's thousands of fish can just turn on a dime.
Yeah, they all go the same direction.
Right. So when you talk to your fish, they can actually hear. They might not know exactly what you're saying, but they can actually feel it and hear it to some extent. And so that's why a lot of times you'll go to like public aquariums and stuff, and people say don't knock on the tanks because that screws them up. Yep, very much so. But they can see you, they can hear you, they know your schedule, and if you feed them every day at a certain time, they're gonna go to that one spot in the fish tank, and they're gonna be sitting there waiting and looking at you, and they're very interactive animals.
Okay, that makes sense. They seem to be very active when you come up to the fish tank. It does seem like they're communicating. So I always wondered that. Although when I start talking to the fish, my cat gets very jealous. It's quite interesting. But thank you very much for that answer. I always wondered that. So thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for
we
calling.
We love having you in town. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, yeah, if you have a cat in the house, they will go after your fish.
Well, from my experience, I think it's a roll of the dice. I mean, I put in a lot of fish tanks through the years, and the feedback that I get afterwards, a lot of people say the cat just walks by the tank and totally ignores it.
Yeah.
Others will stand and
Depending
look
on the
at
cat.
it, and it all depends on the cat. I know a lot of cats that they'll jump on top of the fish tank
Right.
and they'll just lay there because they like the heat from the lights.
Yeah.
Some drink right out of the aquariums and not even bother the fish. So it's
But you do have some that will actually.
they'll every once in a while they may do a little.
I had a problem with, I think it was a raccoon was eating my goldfish.
Oh yeah,
I put a net,
yep.
which,
Yep.
and I haven't lost any since.
Oh good. Yeah, raccoons are pretty. They're pretty gutsy. They'll try to take one.
I know my cat ate 2 betas on me. And all I found was the tail. So I changed the location.
Yeah. Yep.
I have it high up on the desk. It's a bookcase, and I have it way up there.
Yep.
And you know what? Hadn't touched him since. He would sit up on the desk and just stare at it. But he wouldn't do it while I was working. Of course, if he knew better.
Oh no, they have an idea what's
Yeah.
going on.
But yeah, now probably the number one thing is. Oh, we gonna okay already. All right. Go ahead, Carl. You're on with the fish man.
Hi, I have a really small cylinder tank, and for years I had mollies and fatties. But the only thing that seems to survive now are some touches that I put in. Is there anything I can do to make it so they'll live in my tank, the mollies and fatties?
Well, when you had the mollies and platies, and were you living someplace else, or did you have a different water source, or?
Yeah, I was living in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, so
And where are you living now?
I actually live right here in Northbridge.
All right. Ever since you moved up here, you haven't been able to keep your mollies, but your tetras are doing fine.
Yeah, the mollies and the platies just don't make it for whatever reason.
Well, it sounds to me like just a simple water quality problem where
Well, I got a question. Do you have town water or do you have a well?
We have a well.
Yeah, it sounds like the
Light burnout.
the water that you have in this town from your well is very acidic, and the tetras like the acidic water, and the water where you're coming from before had a lot of buffers in it, and there was a higher pH, and that's when your mollies and your platies were doing better. So if I were you, I would just use a little bit of buffer in your water all the time, and keep an eye on your pH and make sure all the parameters are up, and you should be fine.
And what exactly do you mean by a buffer?
A buffer is some type of bicarbonate or a calcium that can limit the amount of acidity that's in the water. And because fish always have respirations, and the bacteria that's going on to eat up all the ammonias and stuff are always making acid.
No,
So
by that you could just go down and buy some sodium bicarbonate.
well, sodium bicarbonate is great if you want to bring your pH up really quickly.
Yeah.
But being a bicarbonate, it gets used up very quickly. So then it goes down
So
really
you should
quickly.
actually go to a store that sells that aquarium.
Right. And the buffers, if you have like a buffing material like calcium, straight calcium, when the pH starts going back down, those buffers can keep that pH up. So you got to use like a little bit of both, and some of the products that they have now are blended very well to keep a balanced tank.
Great. Well, I'm going to give that a shot because I miss those mollies and platies. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's a lot of interesting. I thought there was a lot of people in town that had aquariums. It's just pretty big.
Oh yeah, it's a. Well, I think a lot of it was when the economy started turning down, and especially after 9/11, where people didn't want to travel too much anymore. They wanted to bring part of the tropics to them.
Right.
And
you get some beautiful fish.
oh, yeah.
Now, you know what I saw, and I didn't realize that they have, you can get sharks
Oh, yeah.
that are about that big.
Yep. I do a fair amount of shark tanks.
Now, it's only sharks you can put in the tank, right? Will they attack your other fish?
Pretty much. I mean, you gotta it all depends on the balancing of how many fish you have, how many sharks, how big they are, and how much you feed them. And of course, the bigger the sharks, the more food you got to feed them, which means you need more filtration, more water changes, and it's just like making wine. I used to make a lot of wine, and there's all kinds of balances of everything that has to be.
And of course, with
set.
sharks, it's going to be a saltwater tank.
There are some freshwater sharks.
Oh, really?
But they're actually more like a catfish than they are a shark.
They just look like a shark.
But they just look like a shark. But it's you can get a little bit of everything. It all depends on what you want, you know.
Yeah, and you can actually buy now. You can color code your fish so they fit with the decor of the room.
Now there's a lot of artificially colored fish out there now, and some of the fish they've gotten into, they actually tattoo things on them now.
Yeah, it's amazing what's being done.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of genetics being done now in fish that'll make fish actually glow in the dark.
I've seen that. Well, of course, there are fish that glow in the dark if they found at these lower depths.
Oh yeah, but these are all
ones that
artificial, and
artificial, yeah.
They glow all different kinds of colors, and it's pretty unique. So.
But well, for years they had neon fish, right? They call them neons.
No, the neon tetras, but they don't really. They call them neon tetras, but they don't really glow neon.
Right now, these fish actually do glow.
These will glow. Yep, and I think they're actually trademarked or something like that too. There's a patent on them, and it's interesting what they're doing. It could make an interesting
aquarium.
Oh, very, very much so.
That would be real interesting in that one that you have right over your bed. I mean. That must be a funny feeling, though, laying there and seeing all this water over your head. A lot of people wouldn't be able to handle that.
Yeah, that's when people see that in my brochure, they'll look at that and they go, "Oh, that's cool, but not for me."
Yeah, I don't think I can handle all that water above me. I'd be worried.
But we have a lot of unique stuff. We have big bubble fish tanks and a lot of those, and we have.
Now
fish tanks that make out
you want to put
a
fish to go with the design of the tank, right?
Yeah, there's all kinds of things. The design of the tank, the personality of the person that's going to be looking at it. A lot of things get
it's
get
not
involved.
Going down and picking up the local guppies or goldfish.
Yeah, things have changed quite a bit, and there's a lot of things you got to look at. And it's all balancing acts.
Now, I read somewhere goldfish don't have a stomach.
Well, they have a gullet.
They have a gullet.
So
they're constantly eating.
So they're constantly eating and constantly going to the bathroom.
I only feed mine once a week. And I have no problem. They're getting stuff right out of the nutrients out of the water then.
Well,
of course, what is bugs is bugs.
Oh yes. Yep. Especially in the ponds where they're going to eat all the mosquito larvae. And
right. Well, that's one reason I only feed them once a week. I want them to eat that mosquito larvae.
Yeah. That's fine. What I tell everybody is, no matter what I tell you, no matter what you read in books, if you're doing something and it's working for you, don't try to do it right.
Right.
Just keep doing what's working for you.
I found by cutting back to once a week.
Yep.
I don't have the water doesn't get dirty. I don't get as much algae.
Yep.
I swear to eat the algae.
Algae is the biggest thing that causes algae is phosphates.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that causes phosphates is any type of breakdown of organics. Meaning either a fish that's passed away, and or the only other way you can import organics is by the food you feed.
Right.
So the more you feed, the more algae you're going to get. So by doing it once a week, and you notice that your fish are still healthy, and then everybody's happy, you're doing great.
I also have a stone patio around it, and then rocks on each side and gravel. So when I do feed my lawn, I don't get any phosphates in there because it's far enough away.
Excellent. Yep.
I took all that into consideration.
That's a beautiful thing.
And I say it's very nice to have. And you can sit out by it and really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's
But you know what I found? They're very timid with me, but with anybody. And I think that's because the raccoon was getting after them.
Yeah, Mother Nature's programmed into them to be very leery, and even though they're in a pond, they can see shadows, and they know what's coming up on them. So they
I approach and they scatter.
But if you're good enough and you can keep the raccoons away and you keep all the blue herons away, and you can feed them at a regular time in a regular place.
A blue heron will actually come down and land right there and clean your pond out.
Oh, very much so, in short order. And a great way to avoid that is to go to like either a Christmas tree shop or something like that and get a fake blue herring.
Really?
Because they're very, very territorial. And as they fly by and they'll look over and like, oh, there's already somebody there, they're not going to land there.
I never knew that. That's pretty good.
So too bad that didn't work for the raccoons. But
a fake raccoon wouldn't work either. You just join them.
Stick the dog out there, you'll be all set.
Yeah. But so but we're getting into aquariums. Really aren't that difficult to take care of them.
No. It boils down to a lot of people need personal responsibility. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people who way overfeed their fish, and you'll tell them don't feed too much, and they're like, oh, no problem, and they'll just keep feeding away, leaving the lights on all the time. It's just like any other animal. Just as long as you have personal responsibility, you'll be all set.
It's not a problem with feeding them every day. It's just don't feed them a lot.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. They don't need a lot.
And on the back of a lot of packages, they'll say, "Oh, please feed us 6-7 times a day."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, no,
that's not. Yeah, once a day is plenty, right?"
If I made a product and I wanted it to sell, I'd tell you to use it all the time too.
yeah, absolutely. But we're getting down to the end here.
Oh yeah.
See how
that was a very quick hour.
I told you. But I think that you're going to probably aquarium. Are they more popular in the winter?
Oh, very much so.
It's a good indoor.
Once we, especially us New Englanders, once we get the cabin fever, and no more beach time and no more soccer time and stuff like that, we all come into our homes and stuff, and we sit down, we look at the TVs, and I hear a lot of the times I don't even look at the TV. I look over at the fish tank instead.
Yep.
So, yep.
Yeah, because it can be quite soothing. I know. I enjoy that myself. I just watch my little beta swimming around.
There's even a little beta. There's a lot of real live personality, and there's a lot of that transferred back and forth from the human to the fish.
Yeah, I get a little jealous of me able to just swim around all day and don't do anything else. I mean, he doesn't worry. He just eats and sleeps.
Yeah, I have a lot of animals, and I help out with animal control a lot, and so we do a lot of rescuing, and I look at all of our animals, and I'm like, oh, it's a lap of luxury.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in, Rich.
Oh, thank you for having me here. I appreciate it very much.
You see how it was a very interesting show. We had people are calling in, so they were interested in hearing what you had to say.
Well, I'll have to come back.
Yeah, we'd like to have you come back. And I got a note here. The one thing you don't use on your aquarium is Windex.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people think they can spray the Windex down real quick and wipe down their glass. Well, Windex contains a lot of ammonias. And
that includes on the outside.
And that's including on the outside. And it's just use a wet paper towel or a squeegee.
Because that ammonia will actually absorb into the glass.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
So a lot of people realize
silicone in the glass. Yep.
Even though glass is holding that water, it is porous.
Yep.
Very, 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 very small holes, but that ammonia can get through it.
Yep. And we're working on some type of connection where the ammonia from like Windex can actually cause certain bacteria to grow that are not aesthetically appealing in some saltwater tanks, but we're still working on that little. We like to do experiments and stuff like that a lot. So.
Well, they've talked about Venus is a planet covered with ammonia, and they said there could be life there.
Right.
Okay, we're gonna wrap it up. We will see you in a few minutes with Dr. Hulk, But I want to thank Rich once again for coming in, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll be back, I don't know when we get another guest coming up, but we're going to take a few weeks off here, but we're going to do Dr. Hulk every week. So we will see you in about 5 minutes. Here he goes. Peter. You watch when it hits...